The opinions expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of Eastlink Community TV, its sponsors, or partners.
Black Films That Teach is proudly sponsored by TD, working together to support change, nurture progress, and contribute to making the world a better, more inclusive place.
Hi everyone, thank you all so much for joining us here today to review two short films, Same But Different and Woman Is Complicated. My name is Shirley Hodder and I am the research coordinator for Moving Forward Together. I want to first give appreciation and thanks to Eastlink as they are filming this event as part of their Black Films That Teach series. This event will be available to all Eastlink subscribers and also via YouTube, making it really accessible. I also want to give thanks to our partners who assisted us with coordinating this event, Nova Scotia College of Social Work, Dalhousie School of Social Work, and the Black Cultural Center, along with Opus Cafe for the refreshments. These two films were developed based on findings from the research project, Culturally Responsive Healthcare and Gender-Based Violence in African Nova Scotian Communities. Dr. Nancy Ross, Dalhousie University School of Social Work, was a principal investigator on this study. Along with co-investigators, the Association of Black Social Workers, Sue Bookchin, Executive Director of the Be the Peace Institute, and Dennis Adams, Executive Director of Leave Out Violence, Nova Scotia. The goal of the research study was to contribute new knowledge on the support systems and strategies that strengthen the capacity of healthcare providers and social service professionals to provide culturally responsive care to African Nova Scotians. One of the goals of this research project was to increase our knowledge about the ways in which COVID-19 heightened the vulnerability of African Nova Scotians to experiences of family violence and bring attention to protective measures to reduce risk and promote social equity. Essentially, using data gathered from virtual kitchen table talks with African Nova Scotians and a survey with service providers, we have been able to highlight new learning about the impact of COVID-19 to the African Nova Scotian communities that is framed within an intersectional, gender, and feminist-informed pandemic response. Through these films, we set out to identify cultural and structural factors that contribute to experiences of intimate partner violence within the African Nova Scotian community. We are very pleased to be presenting these films today to the community. As you watch these films, we invite you to center yourself. This involves identifying your social location and reflecting on the multiple ways in which you identify yourself, including intersectional identities like gender expression, race, culture, histories, all those things that influence your daily lived realities. This centering of oneself begins to bring an equity lens into the room so we can understand with humility that our social location and specific life experience influence our interpretation of reality and of these films. It is aligned with the Afrocentric principle titled Ukweli, truth-telling, which asks us to examine what is our truth that informs our worldview. This prepares us for the critical reflective practice, discussion, and finally action that we hope these films will stimulate. When you view these films, it is important to appreciate they may trigger a range of emotions, memories, or gut reactions, and possibly tears. These films graphically depict experiences of racism, gender-based violence, and the removal of a child from their family to the care of Child Protective Services. Please do pay attention to your reactions and take time to process them. Also, be mindful of your own self-care and readiness, and do whatever you need to take care of yourself. Ultimately, we encourage viewers to use these films to create awareness, facilitate discussion and analysis, and lead to actions for systemic change. We are pleased to have you here for the premiere viewing of these films, and we have assembled a panel to help us with the discussion afterwards. There will be opportunity for you, the audience, to engage in the discussion with us as well. Thank you.
So why do we care? Why are we learning about Helen Creighton? She was one of the first founding ladies to document these stories and songs, and without her, a lot of this stuff would have been lost. So
I am so sorry. I really apologize, everybody. My apologies. So we're going to be focused on a piece of African Nova Scotian history today.
this Thursday at 10, I want you to bring one of the 4,000. I'm sure that you can find something. I want you to pick one that you're connected with. And I know we're just about up for time, so thank you for listening.
And it will be 12 noon. And there's a famous quote, ladies and gents, there's a famous quote that I would like for us to focus on. Ladies and gents, if I can get your attention, please.
I love the shuffling of the papers, the enthusiasm, it's amazing.
Sorry for your loss.
Hey, Mr. Locke.
Sorry for your loss.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Welcome to this day in remembrance of a great man who lived by example, was a man of his word, and who loved his family. Carter was a husband, father, grandfather, a true community pillar, and a mentor to many in his community.
Respected by all, admired by most, and he will be missed.
All right, family, I should probably get going. I just want you guys to remember that the church is here whenever you need us.
Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate you.
Are you okay?
It's a big day.
It is, but I think the therapy is really helping.
Yeah, you think so, eh?
I do. Yeah, I really do.
That was a beautiful service today.
Yeah, but
Your father would have appreciated.
but you know I did that for you, right?
I know. You're not him. We're all wounded. Sheila grew up in a total different home, but in a lot of the same situations. She ended up in the system, in the foster care system.
You know, I hit him up. I did. I hit her. And I can't take that slap back. And I feel terrible. But I did. She could have called the police.
But she didn't.
She could have. And as a black man, you know, that's game over.
But she didn't, because she's seeing the same man that I'm seeing, which is someone that's working on doing better, that's taking responsibility.
We have seen since day one, therapist after therapist, and you know, and we still land here.
But do you really think that another white therapist is gonna help? Someone that comes from a totally different place than where we come from, that has come from privilege, and doesn't understand the struggles that we go through every day.
Without you and everyone and the family, I'm just so blessed and grateful.
We'll get through this together.
Yeah.
But you said you can take her. Marcus! I have things I just can't move around at work. You said months ago when I made the appointment that everything was okay. It was gonna be okay. It's fine.
Yeah. Typical, right? Work's more important, right? Gonna make a big name for yourself and leave us all behind? Forget about being a mother? And a wife! You got no one to blame but yourself.
I'm here for a checkup with my daughter. Is she okay?
Look at her face, man. Jesus.
I wonder how bad it looks.
Jess, come on. We're gonna go sit down together. Come on, I want to talk to you. Come on. Stand up, please.
Oh, Christ, you're all on welfare. That poor kid.
Rhea? Is there a Rhea here with Aisha? Yeah, we're here.
I hope she can get help. I would never stay in a relationship like that.
And you are Reeny Smith?
Yep.
This is Aisha?
Yep.
Phone number is still 902-889.
God, if they call the police or a social worker, that will ruin our lives.
Doctor, I think we have another referral to Child Protective Services.
Oh, this must be Aisha. How are you doing in school?
That was so stupid coming here looking like this. Why didn't you just change the damn appointment? Maybe Marcus is right, that I never pay attention. I love him so much. I just want this family to work.
Well, that's a clean bill of health for Aisha. But that's quite a shiner. How do you feel? Concussion symptoms, a headache, or anything?
I told you. That job would just kill you.
Look at her face, man.
Doctor, I think we have another referral to Child Protective Services.
I want to thank you, panelists, for being here with us today. And I know this is not the first time you've seen these films, but it's the first time to see them with a public audience. So I'd like to start our discussion by inviting you to share your initial reactions to the film in this moment in time. Perhaps, Nancy, we can start with you as the lead investigator for the research project that led to the development of these films. What are your thoughts?
Yes, watching them again, it's a very emotional experience watching them again, and I think the film team did such a wonderful job, and they engaged so many young people in the production of them. And I think that we tried to be true to the voices of the people we interviewed in the kitchen table talks. So what you see in those films depicted, it comes from the people that we interviewed, the stories that they shared with us. And to me, what's kept me always interested in this area of interest is what a vulnerable time it is in people's lives when they experience gender-based violence. And often it's a time, I think, when people can really make a lot of change. And I think they can, if they were supported. But I think for most systems, when they access most systems, they're afraid. I think they're afraid that they're going to be more punished, that the reaching out for help is going to be more harmful than the actual experience itself. And so that's portrayed, I think, in each of these films in a way that reaching out for help is so difficult, particularly for the African Nova Scotian male who was looking for help, in terms of therapeutic supports, and it was difficult to find. So I feel that we have so much more to do in this area, and that it could be a time where people are met with support rather than an adversarial system.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Let's go to Divine next. Divine, what are your thoughts as one of the research assistants who actually conducted the kitchen table talks for us?
Yeah, so just to kind of build off of what Nancy said, it was really seeing the discussions that we had on the kitchen table talk kind of come to life, and I felt a lot of emotions, honestly, watching that and just seeing the experiences of, people and how we're kind of seeing it visually. People talked about just seeking help, right? Just going in for a general checkup, but then as soon as you enter, you're, faced with all these judgments and all these challenges, and it brings up emotions for me too, because I can relate on a personal level, seeking support and stuff like that, just going to clinics or whatever, but then also just seeing like the discussions we had come to life. I think that brought a lot of emotions, and it felt nice, honestly, to just kind of see everything once again just come to life, I would say. It's a really powerful film for sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. Sobaz, the film's creator, lead actor, and director. What are your thoughts as you viewed the films here today with this audience?
And that's a great question, Wanda. And I think the audience isn't just the people here. I was at the beginning of this discussion talking about our ancestors who preceded us here. I feel actually quite emotional. I'm looking at the images here, and Mrs. Johnson looks very much like my grandmother. So, I feel the weight of women who have carried our communities from day one. I feel that weight. I've my own mother who passed during COVID period, so she didn't thankfully experience that really difficult time for a lot of people. But I feel the need to really focus and not be washed away by emotions, because I think it's very easy to succumb to that. So I feel a need to anchor myself in my thoughts, feelings, my emotions, and ideas, so that I'm able to, think deeply about the films, the partnerships, and the contribution, and the discussion that I hope will ensue from our audience.
Really interesting comment, and interesting that we're having this here today in this space with the ancestors looking at us.
Yes.
And, and I'm going to go to you next, and sort of thinking about the ancestors who provided care and services before we had social workers. And so as the director of the new Afrocentric Child and Family Wellbeing team with the Department of Community Services, what are your immediate thoughts as you're viewing these films with us today?
Again, this is the second time I saw the film, and the first time I was really triggered by it. I was a child protection worker, and I experienced that and felt where things had to be better. And how did things get better? And that I saw where I need to speak out about the services that the department was delivering to the community of African descent, Black people, and even to the employees. That because we mattered in this. And sitting here today, as we look the floor, this is the map of Nova Scotia, but also above is the map of Africa, and it connected to. And as the director of the Afrocentric Child and Family Wellbeing, this is a confirmation that the department is in the right direction at such as a time as this. As the department recognized that there were gaps, there were barriers in terms of providing services and culturally responsive services for Black and people of African descent, the department was well aware that we weren't doing that, hence the development of this team. So as I watch the film and I sit here today, for me as a director, and it's not about Ann Simmons, it's about the community, the youth, and the children that we serve, this is a confirmation. And just the department just changing the name from child protection, which is more of a policing, to child family well-being, speaks about community, families, and individuals.
And that sounds like a very African-centered way. And it almost feels like we're going back in time.
Yes.
Because historically, we had those Afrocentric notions of well-being and families and kinship.
Yes.
And people taking care of each other. I'm going to throw to the audience now, and because this is being filmed, we do need you to go to the microphone, and there is a microphone. Yes, so we have the microphone. But I'd like to ask if any of you would like to share your first emotional or any physical reactions to the films, or anything you've heard from the panelists so far. You want to do as Sobas suggests and sit with it. And sit with the emotions, and that's fine. So I'll go back to the panelists. So when you think about these films, why film and why these films? To highlight the findings of the research project. Because there's a number of different ways that we can share findings from research. Why these two, same but different, Woman It's Complicated? What's jumping out as the reason why we have these?
I'd like to speak to that because as people lived experience, it actually happened. And to speak about it and to see it on film speaks to what we, and I say collective we, need to do when we see things happening when it comes to people of African descent and Black people. It happened. It's life. And turning it to a part where, and I speak in terms of the Afrocentric Child and Family Wellbeing piece, is how do we put the prevention, the early intervention, and rather than report, support. And that takes that whole village. So the policing, health, school needs to know if you have concerns, you know, what are you doing to support that family? And, you know, in the past, readily you report. But how do you support? How do you reach in to prevention, early intervention, or community-based services to provide the support? Because the family and the youth might just need that support from the community. So I think it's very important that, you know, doing that from a very prevention piece. But what I saw today on the film is the lived experience. That's what's happening out there, and it's happening right now. So the question that I pose, and I know I'm not supposed to do this as a panelist, what are we going to do collectively? How do we bring that prevention and that early intervention? Not all report to Child and Family Wellbeing has to be an open file. It might require, like similar as Dr. Wanda talked about, that community. How did the community step in and give that service and support for that family or that youth? And, you know, I have to say, it could have been me. Could have been me. There was 10 of us in my family. My mom died when I was like 5 years old. It took the community to raise me. It took the village. And we have seen over the years, the village had been, been taken away for various reasons. Now, what the department sees that it's important to have the village. And the village need to look like me. The village and the services has to come from my perspective and what that looked like. And having the space to speak bravely about it. Having people that look like me to say, I hurt today, I don't have today, rather than, oh, you don't have, and I hurt today, rather that being a call to Children and Family Wellbeing. Well, what can I do? How can I reach into Auntie? How can I reach into a therapist that's going to help me? So going from protection to community and family is the, and I say the journey that I prayed for years. And I worked in Child and Family Wellbeing for 30 some odd years. And if you read the chapter, and it's not about Ann Simmons, there was a book written by ABSW, Be the Change, I believe. I'm chapter 5. And what I wanted back then, 20 years ago, and I have to say, thank God, is coming to life and is happening. And for me, that's confirmation. So when I look at the film and I hear the panelists, we have arrived, and I say we, as a department and people of African descent and Blacks of Nova Scotia, be the voice for our family and for our youth and the children that we serve. If you don't hear from me ever again, step in, stand up if you have to stand alone, because social workers that did this work, we had to stand alone and speak up. Hence why we have the Afrocentric Child and Family Wellbeing. The community spoke up. They spoke up. So when you see both films, that happened. But now I'm here to say that I'm blessed to be, and I don't use the term lightly, a director, but I'm blessed to be someone to say, okay, as we move forward, we're going to have social workers of African descent and Blacks to say to the social worker, have you applied this lens? Have you looked into the community? Have you looked into the family? Rather than remove, we're going to support. So I just want to confirm, I know it's tape, but God is good. And for me, it's all the time.
Amen. Thank you, Ann. Can I just speak for one second?
Absolutely.
So Bess, thank you. So Ann is referring to the edited book, Still Fighting for Change. She's chapter 5 in Still Fighting for Change. Still Fighting for Change was published by Nimbus. And that book tells stories of Black social workers working in the field. So what I hear you saying, Ann, is the films will be helpful to the journey as you're continuing to do the work.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So Bess?
Yeah, I was just going to sort of echo what Ann was saying about when she said speaking bravely, and then Ann also mentioned about social workers who are standing alone. I think there's this saying in film, or just storytelling in general, that every story has already been told. I'm sure people have heard that before. But I think that that might be true, it might not be, I don't know. But I think what definitely is rare are the perspectives from which the stories are being told. So when you ask about why film, I think film does that really well. It can bring out a perspective that kind of may not be in the whole marketplace of ideas. It can bring out a point of view that maybe causes people to take a second look at something that they thought was very common, you know, or thought that they understood. So film is a very powerful medium in that regard about perspective. Also, I think, I think it's important to be able to acknowledge, I think, journey, as you said, Anne, and films, again, are able to express journey. You know, the characters we meet at the beginning are not necessarily the same as we leave them in the end. You can see those sorts of changes. And I think being able to, as both of you have said, Nancy and yourself, being co-leaders and Sue, that, you know, these ideas come from collective conversations within the community. And I think that many of those voices do not have a platform. People are, you know, intimate partner violence can be very stigmatizing and isolating for both people, victim and perpetrator. And I think being able to crack that open, which I think films can do, which is what I hope these films have done, provides us with an opportunity for people not to suffer in silence, for people to be able to figure the way out, the way through. Because you can't do that in isolation. You can't, like Anne said, it takes a village. And the problem solving requires collective problem solving.
I'd like to, if I can, if you're okay with me switching things for a moment, I'd like to ask, what is one key message that you hope these films will portray? So there'll be the audience viewing, maybe people will use these in classrooms. There's a number of different ways we think the films may be used, but what's one key message you want people to take? We'll start with you, Divine.
I always find it hard, I feel like, to get one key message, but I think it's important to check your biases. As service providers, even as people seeking services, you have to check your biases. One thing I've learned is it shows up in a lot more ways than we think, right? Even looking at especially the film with Women, It's Complicated. As soon as she walked into that hospital, the lady, you know, taking the attendance and so forth, you can see in her face already the biases, right? And even the nurses coming through, you can just see their faces says everything. So it's important, I believe, for people to really check their biases and do that internal work, right? And that goes for, you know, service providers and as well as people seeking services, because sometimes when we come in and you've been hurt and so forth for so long, it is kind of hard to trust people, and it's kind of hard to, you know, also let your guard down. So just making that conscious effort really to check your biases and also like internally just see, like, you know, where you are and what are, you know, the ways that you may show up to other people and how they might kind of, you know, see it and receive how you're showing up. So I think it's really important, you know, one thing I saw with the film is, you know, as people, you really do have to check your biases. Yeah. Thank you.
That's really important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy?
Well, for me, from a perspective of a person who is obviously a white person, I have heard people often dismiss experiences of racism. And so I think one message that I think is important from these films is to, you know, to not do that, you know, to not dismiss these stories and to listen and to, you know, increase your awareness and think about where these stories lead us.
Thank you. Sobaz?
One thing, well, I think I hope one message is that we should not shy away from having the conversations that we do, and in public forums. Film is a very public, it can be a very public activity, film watching with audiences. It speaks to that possibility to be able to share an experience, to be able to exchange ideas and thoughts and feelings and emotions. And it doesn't mean we have to all agree, but I think just being able to, you know, the things that we do when we're watching a film, we're attentive, we're listening, we're paying attention, we're trying to understand, we're trying to make sense of. These are sorts of things I think that I hope audiences will do. And I think it becomes challenging to do that when, you know, we have such difficult subject matter, you know, those uncomfortable conversations, those difficult conversations. I hope that the film encourages people to have those, you know, and not in a way that sort of stigmatizes and condemns, but opens up possibilities. Again, I go back to what Anna said about this village, the idea of the village. This is a very Afrocentric idea. It takes a village to do so much. You know, to complicate things further, a lot of the people in the film, young people in the film, they're not here today, unfortunately. But, you know, one of the things I often hear them will say is, but what if that village is the problem? You know, so there's that too. And I think that problem solving, figuring things out, being able to be in it for the long range. You know, these problems are not going to be solved overnight. These problems are not new problems. It's going to require a very long-ranged view and being able to work through the difficult conversations.
Not shying away from those difficult conversations.
Absolutely.
And you complicate things even further when you talk about the value of the village, but what happens when the village is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Then the work is not with the individual, but with the village.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to weigh in on that last question?
I totally agree with my fellow panelists. I just wanted to say that reflective practicing and having those conversations, having the tough conversation, be mindful of body language, be mindful of language, just be mindful where you are and who you're with. Lots of times it's walking in, it's a cookie cutter. This is the issue, we're going to apply this, this, and this. Be mindful of that not all of it are the same. And when you're applying, you know, providing services. But I find reflective practicing and doing some debriefing. There's days that I used to talk to myself, now I talk to others, no, but having that tough conversation, difficult conversation, and feeling brave to bring it up. As I stated earlier, stand if you have to stand alone, and standing in for the right reasons, then I totally feel that my life will not be in vain, because it's that village that I want to preserve and protect. Hence, we're in this building today, which speaks about our culture, how to protect and preserve it. So the same as it comes to youth and family and children that we deal with, we need to make sure that their well-being is taken care of physically, spiritually, and emotionally. So self-reflection.
Black Films That Teach is a weekly series dedicated to amplifying Black voices and experiences. If you're a local filmmaker and you want to see your film on our show, or you have any suggestions, email us at comments@eastlink.ca.
At TD, we support people and opportunities that help inspire, amplify, and elevate Black communities. We're committed to do more than talk the talk.
Thank you all very much. I'm going to give one more opportunity to the audience. Would any of you have any questions you want to bring to the panelists?
So I wanted to add that when one of, I think was Jude, who was is expressing that sense of village, in my culture is like that too. And when I got outside of my country and went to other countries, I couldn't, because I was raised in the neighborhood with, when everybody support each other. I couldn't understand how other societies couldn't. It was not a thing. No? For me, it was kind of shocking to see how everybody is very individualistic. In my now acknowledgement, I see, well, when everybody put a little bit effort together, things might be easier and better, right? Mm-hmm. And especially in North America, I have that feeling that everybody's in their own thing and nobody wants to be bothered. And I remember being in New York, and just, you know, a new person in the town. You don't know what to do, how to navigate yourself. And I asked multiple people in the subway, so what line I should take to go here. And many times I have zero feedback, zero response. Happily for my luck, some people, black people, I could, when I see their face and they see my struggle, I don't know if it was a connection. They could see my, you know, that I was struggling to get somewhere. And they immediately, oh no, you know, you have to do this, take this, go there, then you do this. And so after that, I always go to these communities, because I think they understand that you say, the sense of community and helping each other, right? So yeah, that's all I want to add. Thank you.
Thank you. To the panelists, are there any final words you'd want to share with the audience about the films, your role in it, and what your hope is going forward? We'll start with you this time, Sobes.
Final comments about the film, my role, and what was the last piece? What
would you like to see going forward?
What would I like to see going forward? Well, I think my role was, for me anyway, I thought it was very important to bring voices that may not be that present on issues around the subject matter. I think it was important to be able to hear, you know, I'm a black male myself, you know, so I think I wanted that voice to be present, and I think it was important for it not to overshadow anybody's voice. But I think, you know, having a holistic, again, this is another, when I think of Afrocentric principles, wholeness, you know, completeness. You know, we talked about, you talked about the West and this sort of very individualistic, compartmentalized. Yeah, no, well, you're bang on. I think that's part of the liberal tradition here, you know, individualism. It's not your imagination, you know, it's how we're all conditioned. So I think, you know, I wanted really to be able to have space in these films where voices, where all the voices could be heard. And also, I mean, the films are not easy to watch, you know, they're not. And I think that what I hoped the audience would take away really is sort of like, you know, these issues, like I said, have been with us and are with us and will continue to be with us. And I think we have to find solutions. And I think that if we are going to do that individually, we're not going to find those solutions because we have a partial representation of whatever it is, of the issues that are addressed. But I think men and women, you know, people of diverse gender, talking about these issues from their point of view, their experiences, and contributing, you know, I think we're often stuck in a pain and punishment cycle, Wanda, where we are hurt and we lash out because we're hurt. And that makes total sense, right? Because, I mean, if you think about it, if you break, you know, you break a leg or an arm or something, it's incredibly painful. And if somebody else has caused that breakage, you're going to be angry at that person. So I think it's totally understandable and even justifiable to be angry when people have caused pain. But if we stay there, and that's where I think our justice systems are stuck in pain and punishment cycles. Many of our systems are stuck in cycles. Healing is a word, again, from my Afrocentric sort of conditioning. Healing is a huge part of the process, right? So you break a leg or you experience trauma, how do we set the leg so it can heal? How do we set the trauma so we can move beyond it rather than be stuck by it? You know, I remember when, you know, I don't know if you remember that hockey team. There was an accident and a whole hockey team died in that crash.
In Saskatchewan?
Yes, in Saskatchewan. And I can remember the media attention around it. And I'm not saying people should forgive, right? That's not what I'm saying, but I just remember how people were saying this is unforgivable. Can never forgive this pain and punishment. And I have children, so I can only imagine if I had lost my child in that circumstance, how painful it would be and how difficult. But the one person who talked about forgiveness was the coach's wife in a media interview. I remember that. And she was saying that, you know, everybody else is like, you know, can't move beyond it. It's too painful. And she was the one voice that said, for my husband who died in the accident, I have to figure out a way forward. And this is that way forward. I have to be able to understand and see the driver of that vehicle as a human being, not as a monster, you know? And I just think that when it comes to intimate partner violence, that's part of it too. I think the people who have caused the pain have to contribute to the healing as much as the people who are experiencing the pain. And I think that what I hope this film will begin to do is to create an environment where people can step forward on both sides of intimate partner violence and be able to find a way to heal and not be stuck in this pain and punishment cycle that our systems often perpetuate.
So we're really talking about a whole shift in the way we do things, in the way we intervene in intimate partner violence.
Yes.
Thank you. Nancy?
I feel like all I can say is ditto. I think Sobha said so many things that I have motivated me to participate in this project, and it's been really really wonderful to feel like these films might have a life of their own, and they may influence change. And I think the process for all of us, I think, involved in it, has certainly been one that's shaped us and moved us, and calls me to more. And you know, I was just looking at those African principles over there, and you know, the comment about how isolating our world can be, you know, and how people are so full of anxiety and depression these days, and how, you know, issues around gender-based violence can really amplify that sense of isolation, and you feel you're going to be judged, and you feel so alone and fearful. And I think opening the door to these conversations is something that's really important. And then when you add an intersectional lens and you look at the impact of race, I think, again, that conversation is hard to have. And I think we need to have more of those conversations as well. So bringing that kind of what people talk about, intersectionality, but I think actually talking about all of these things together, I think is really important. And I think there's a lot to learn from the wisdom of people in this, that are here, that I think dispels some of that negative impacts of neoliberalism, or that I think has resulted in colonization and isolation and competitiveness and divisiveness and alienation, all those things.
Can you just comment briefly on your role as an ally in this work?
So I have been conscious, like throughout this journey, that I am white, and and so often I've heard people say that they need to see therapists that look like them, and they need to see people in all systems that look like them. So I have thought about my role a lot in terms of an ally, and I think it's the isolation and the separation that I see, that I think is at root for a lot of need for increased compassion and care and healing and intergenerational healing. And so for me as an ally, I think it's my own healing that's at stake as well, and not, and I think it's a collective healing. So I feel called to action as an ally, but also recognizing that I too need to heal and take, and acknowledge our positionality, which we've all talked about here.
Thank you. Thank you. Anne?
I just like to say that as the panelists who spoke before me, this is collective work. We need to do it together in collaboration. The silos need to come down. They have to come down. And as a director of the Afrocentric Child and Family Wellbeing, certainly our division has started that, and so have the department take down the silos so that we can work together. There's no sense having a youth or a family going in 20 directions when they can go in one direction. So continue to roll in the same direction for the family and for the youth. So collective work is happening, collaboration is happening, and conversation. Having those conversations is so important, and having those brave conversations. And I always say to individuals come, how did you get here? And I'm saying, it's not about me, it's about the family and the youth that we serve, but having those difficult conversations. And the first conversation is asking the person, what is your race? So that you're able to apply the cultural responsive services. So we got past that, and I'm happy to report or say that the Department of Community Services now have on our integrated collection information is asking the demographic detail, what is your race? And if the individuals say why, it's because we want to be culturally responsive. So starting there and continue to have those conversations. I certainly will be sharing the films clip to the Children and Family Services so that they can use them as in reflective supervision and use as teaching. It's the place to go. So seeing that speaks to the reality that what we're dealing with and maybe continue to deal with.
Thank you. Devon?
I think I honestly feel very, very privileged to have been a part of the research team that worked on this. Just thinking back, I was a social work student, and I thought this was a couple of weeks kind of project and stuff like that, and just seeing how much it's grown and just seeing what it's developed into, I feel very privileged and honored to have been a part of that, and to have an opportunity to learn from people like Nancy and Senator Bernard. It's been a very beautiful journey for me, and I am excited to see how this work is going to move forward, and I hope that this film is used as a guide in educational institutions and stuff like that. And even for service providers, I hope that you do take the time and just watch the film again and just reflect and see how do you show up, right? Take the time to look at the film and see where are my strengths, where can I support, where can I be an ally, where can I speak up, so that the individuals that are doing the work don't have to always stand alone, right? Sometimes people that do stand alone, you get tired. You're overworking, you get burned out. So it is good for those that, have a bit of, privilege and stuff to also stand with the individuals that stand alone and speak up when you see things are being done. And if you see that something in your departments or something in your institution is having negative effects, don't just sit there and be a bystander, right? Let us, want to talk about community, let us come together and find a way to support each other and make sure that, when community members are looking for services, they are being supported in a holistic way. They are being supported in a way that meets their need, not in a way that fits the organization's, criteria, but let it meet the needs of the community and let it meet the needs of an individual. So I just really feel honored and just blessed, honestly, to have been a part of this and just seeing how far it's come, and I'm looking forward to seeing how much farther it's gonna go. So thank you.
Well, it's been my honor to moderate the panel today, so I want to thank all of you for being a part of it. I want to thank all of you for coming. When we set out to do this work, we set out to break the silence around violence in African Nova Scotian communities. We set out to create braver spaces so that these difficult conversations could happen. And we set out to create a tool that could be used to help educate, to help create awareness, and to help lead people to action. You can let us know if you think we've done that. Over to you, Sue.
Good afternoon. I'm Sue Bookchin from Be the Peace Institute, and I was asked to conclude this afternoon, which is not an easy thing to do, given I am practically speechless. I think none of us anticipated what would come from this project when we started, and it's been some years already. Divine, you were a young student, and now you're a mature practitioner and soon to be a mother. Nancy and Wanda, the way you described it, we are sisters in allyship and solidarity. And I didn't anticipate how much I would be changed in the process. I'm always open to being changed. I seek those experiences, but I really had no idea how life-shifting and life-nurturing this experience of this intergenerational, interracial project team would be over the course of years, where we shared some very touching and painful moments together. And so, Baz, to have you as part of this and as such a creative community contributor has been such a privilege, and to see the result of that. Thank you for joining our team in that way. And Anne, I am so inspired that someone who has been praying for this is the person who now is in a position to actually do what you have been praying for. And we, of course, want to help and support in any way we can. And we didn't ask you, but you are now part of our team as well. So welcome. Be careful what you ask for, I don't know. I also just want to note the funders for this project. It started with the Nova Scotia COVID-19 Health Research Coalition. The Dartmouth General Hospital Foundation provided some funding for the film. There was also funding that came from the Status of Women Office through ABSW. There were My Tax grants. There was some funding from the Progressive Senate Group. And just to call you all to action in some way. So we all have spheres of influence. where we can stand up, we can notice, we can speak, we can be brave, we can create brave spaces together to have these conversations. And so when you think about these films, and I found the first time I watched it, I couldn't stop thinking about them. And so what are the changes you would like to see? What are the things you saw in this film that need to change? How might those responses have been different than the ones that you saw in the film? And finally, in a tribute to this place and to these ancestors all around us, our systems, our Western society built on patriarchal, white supremacist, colonialist values was not created for Black people to survive, never mind to thrive. And yet, 400 years later, here in Nova Scotia, more than 50 Indigenous Black communities are doing just that, are sustaining themselves and building resilience, and we can stand in solidarity with the possibilities that they see, that you all see for yourselves. We all want that, and we all have a role to play. So thank you all for being here today.
Black Films That Teach on Eastlink is sponsored by TD, working together for a more inclusive tomorrow.